The night was darker than usual, the rain falling in heavy sheets, drumming against the glass windows of a small cafe located at the corner of a quiet street. Inside, Aisha worked tirelessly, wiping tables and serving tea to the few late-night customers who sought warmth from the storm outside. She was a poor girl, but her spirit was strong. Despite her hardships, she carried a smile that lit up her weary face. She believed that kindness was wealth no one could steal, and it was this belief that guided her actions every day. As the rain poured, Aisha noticed a man stumbling near the cafe's entrance. His tall figure seemed elegant yet fragile, as though burdened by invisible chains. Before anyone else could react, he collapsed onto the ground unconscious. Aisha rushed outside, her slippers splashing in puddles as she bent to help him. His face was pale, his breathing shallow. Without hesitation, she pulled him under the cafe's awning and placed his head gently in her lap. "Sir, are you all right?" "Please wake up," she whispered, panic in her voice. Grabbing a glass of water, she carefully poured a little on his lips, her trembling hands revealing her fear. After a moment, his eyelids fluttered, and he slowly regained consciousness. His eyes met hers, and for a brief second, he was struck by the genuine concern shining in her gaze. A stranger had shown him more care than many he had known all his life. The cafe owner suggested calling an ambulance, and soon he was taken to the hospital. Aisha stayed behind, watching the ambulance lights fade into the distance. She didn't even know his name, but something deep inside told her that their fates had just intertwined. For Aisha, it was just an act of kindness. For the man, it was the beginning of a story that would change both their lives forever. The hospital room was quiet except for the steady beeping of machines. Daniel slowly opened his eyes, the memory of the rain and the girl's anxious voice echoing in his mind. He remembered her soft hands, her worried tone, and the way she stayed calm when he had collapsed. For a man who had lived surrounded by people chasing his wealth and position, that brief encounter felt strangely pure. Daniel Alexander was no ordinary man. He was the CEO of one of the city's largest corporations, a billionaire whose every move was followed by the media. But as he lay in that hospital bed, he did not think about his empire. He thought only of the girl who had saved him. He didn't even know her name. The next day, dressed simply in a casual shirt and jeans, he left the hospital against his doctor's advice. He didn't want guards or luxury cars. He wanted answers. Guided only by the memory of the cafe's glowing sign and the sound of the rain, he found his way back. Inside the cafe, Aisha was busy serving tea. She didn't notice him at first. When she finally turned, Daniel's heart skipped a beat. She looked different under the soft light, tired but graceful, poor yet dignified. He took a seat quietly in the corner. "Welcome, sir. What would you like?" she asked with her usual politeness, unaware of who he really was. "A cup of tea, please," he replied with a faint smile. As she served him, he watched her carefully. There was no trace of greed or recognition in her eyes. She treated him the same way she treated every customer, with simple kindness. Daniel felt something stir in his heart, a longing he hadn't known before. From that day forward, he began visiting the cafe more often. Each time he sat in the same spot, listening to her laughter, observing her struggles, and admiring her strength. Aisha thought he was just another ordinary man trying to escape the rain of life. She didn't know he was the CEO whose fainting had brought their worlds together. For Daniel, hiding his identity wasn't deception. It was a chance to be seen as a man, not as a fortune. And for the first time in years, he wanted to be truly known. The cafe became Daniel's quiet refuge. Every evening he found himself drawn there, sitting at his usual corner table, sipping tea he hardly tasted, and watching Aisha move gracefully between customers. She was always busy, yet her smile never wavered, even when exhaustion showed in her eyes. Daniel admired her strength, the way she faced life's hardships without bitterness. At first, their conversations were simple, polite greetings, casual remarks about the weather, or light jokes about how much tea he drank. But slowly the walls between them began to fall. One evening, as the cafe was nearly empty, Aisha joined him for a few minutes. Her apron was stained, her hair messy from a long shift, but her eyes carried warmth. "You come here a lot, sir," she said softly. "This place isn't very fancy. Why choose it?" Daniel smiled, hiding the truth. "Because it feels real here. The world outside is noisy, but here, it's peaceful. Aisha chuckled. Peaceful? For me, it's just work, but I'm glad you feel that way. That night, their talk drifted deeper. Aisha shared little pieces of her life. The struggles of paying rent, her mother's illness, the dreams she once had of studying further but couldn't, because life demanded sacrifice. She spoke with honesty, not self-pity, and that moved Daniel. For the first time in years, Daniel felt like a man, not a CEO burdened with power. He told her small things too. Memories from childhood, his love for books, the loneliness that often followed him despite his successful life. Each meeting wove an invisible thread between them. Daniel longed to tell her the truth, but fear held him back. Would she still laugh with him, share her dreams, if she knew he was a billionaire? Or would her eyes change like everyone else's had, filled with greed or fear? One rainy evening, as thunder rolled outside, Daniel looked at Aisha and realized something undeniable. He wasn't just grateful to her anymore. He was falling in love, and though Aisha didn't yet know it, her kindness had already changed his heart forever. The cafe had become a part of Daniel's routine, but life has a way of breaking secrets open. Aisha still knew him only as a quiet, kind customer, unaware that the man who listened to her stories each night was one of the wealthiest CEOs in the country. But truth has a strange habit. It doesn't stay hidden forever. One morning, as Aisha prepared breakfast for her younger brother, the television flickered in the background. A business news channel was reporting on a corporate award ceremony. She barely paid attention until her eyes froze on the screen. There, standing confidently in a black suit, was Daniel. His face, his smile. It was the same man who drank tea at her cafe every evening. The headline read, "Daniel Alexander, CEO of Alexander Enterprises." Her hands trembled, the plate nearly slipping from her grip. Shock, disbelief, and a sting of betrayal washed over her. He wasn't just a customer, he was a billionaire, and he had kept it hidden. Questions swirled in her mind. Why did he lie? Did he laugh at her struggles behind her back? Did he come to the cafe out of pity? That evening, when Daniel arrived at his usual time, Aisha's expression was different. The warmth in her eyes had been replaced with a storm. She walked up to his table, placed the teacup harshly before him, and asked in a trembling voice, "Why didn't you tell me who you are?" Daniel froze, realizing the truth had reached her. He took a deep breath. "Aisha, I never wanted to deceive you. I wanted you to see me as a man, not as a CEO. For once in my life, I wanted someone to care for me. Not my money, not my name, just me." Her eyes welled up, torn between anger and understanding. "You think honesty doesn't matter. You let me open my heart while you hid yours." The cafe felt colder than the storm raging outside. Daniel wanted to reach for her hand, but she pulled away. Their bond, once so fragile yet beautiful, now stood at a crossroads. That night, Aisha left him sitting alone, unsure whether trust could ever be rebuilt. But deep inside, despite the hurt, her heart whispered what her mind refused to admit. She still cared. The days after the revelation were heavy with silence. Aisha kept her distance, her heart torn between anger and an emotion she dared not name. Daniel, however, refused to give up. He continued visiting the cafe, even when she barely looked at him. He hoped his presence would prove what words could not, that his feelings were real. But love, especially between two unequal worlds, was never simple. News of Daniel's mysterious visits to a small cafe began to spread. Paparazzi caught glimpses of him leaving the narrow street, and soon whispers filled the city. Rumors bloomed like poisonous flowers. Some claimed Aisha was a gold digger. Others mocked Daniel for chasing a poor waitress. The storm grew fiercer when Daniel's family found out. His father, a proud businessman, confronted him. "Daniel, your reputation is at stake. A girl like her doesn't belong in our world. She'll drag you down." Daniel's voice was calm but firm. "Father, for once I don't care about the world. She saved me when no one else would. She saw me as a man, not a title. Isn't that worth more than wealth?" But not everyone understood. The board of his company raised concerns. Shareholders questioned his judgment, and society's sharp tongue lashed against them both. Aisha, overwhelmed by the sudden attention, began to withdraw. She couldn't bear being the reason Daniel's world trembled. One evening she met him outside the cafe. Tears shimmered in her eyes as she said, Daniel, your world is too big, too cruel for someone like me. I can't fight them. I don't want you to lose everything because of me. Daniel grasped her hand tightly. Aisha, I don't want their approval. I only want you. Let me fight for us. But she pulled her hand away, her voice breaking. Sometimes love isn't enough. And with that she turned, leaving Daniel staring at her fading figure under the dim streetlights. For the first time since meeting her, Daniel felt powerless, yet his heart burned with determination. If love demanded trials, he was ready to face them all. Nights felt colder without Aisha's presence. Daniel threw himself into work during the day, but his thoughts always drifted back to the girl whose kindness had saved him. The cafe felt emptier each time he entered. Though she still served customers, her smiles were no longer the same. They were forced, painted on a face that carried silent pain. Daniel knew he couldn't let their story end in silence. He had fought corporate battles, survived ruthless competitors, and carried the weight of empires. But fighting for her felt like the most important battle of his life. One late evening, after most customers had left, Daniel walked into the cafe. The rain outside mirrored the storm inside his heart. Aisha was cleaning tables, her movements slow, weary. She looked up, her eyes tired as if expecting another confrontation. But this time Daniel was different. He walked up to her, his usual confidence stripped away. In front of the girl who had once lifted his fainted body, he now lowered himself onto one knee. The cafe grew silent, the rain muffled as though the world itself held its breath. Aisha, he began, his voice trembling with raw honesty. I came into your life as a stranger, and you saved me without knowing who I was. Since then, every moment with you has taught me what wealth can never buy: peace, truth, and love. I don't care about the rumors, the business world, or even my family's disapproval. I only care about you. Please, let me be the man who stands beside you, not above you. Aisha's eyes filled with tears. She wanted to resist, to remind him of the differences between their worlds. But as she looked into his eyes, she saw no CEO, no billionaire, just a man kneeling with a heart laid bare. Her voice broke as she whispered, Daniel, I was afraid your world would crush me. But maybe love is enough if we both hold on. He reached for her hand, and this time she didn't pull away. The cafe's dim lights glowed warmer as she allowed herself to smile, soft, genuine, and filled with hope. That night, amidst the scent of tea and the sound of rain, two souls made a promise, not bound by wealth or status, but by a love that had survived trials, misunderstandings, and fear. It was not the end of their journey, but the beginning of a new one, together, forever.